Hi, Jan at JDK Counseling here. Today I want to talk a little bit about masks and filters, PPE, our external PPE, and more particularly our internal PPE, personal protective equipment. Um, there are times and places, as we know, for external PPE, times and places for using them, and times and places for using them appropriately. And some PPE is more effective in certain situations than other PPE. And if we use the wrong PPE, it can actually harm ourselves or others. For example, jogging in a hazmat suit at 90 degrees would not be a good and healthy thing. Even wearing some of the other masks we know now when we're doing strenuous activity is not a good or healthy thing. Um, and it's easier to think about this kind of PPE because it's visible. The other thing we know about the external PPE is sometimes it can make it really hard to hear others' voice and hard for us to hear because the other's voice is muffled. It can also make it hard for others to hear us because the external PPE or masks sometimes make our voice muffled, or we don't get all the cues of facial expression, or if we kind of need to read lips a little bit. So, knowing that PPE can sometimes get in the way of those things is really helpful, and helpful in knowing how to use it appropriately. Our internal PPE, in many ways, works the same way. Um, and we develop our internal PPE through all of the life experiences and all of the things that make us us in terms of our identity and the way we are, the way we be and function in the world. And this can be education, our families, our communities, experiences at work with colleagues. It can be very individual, it can be very, global, macro level. The heavier, harder experiences also are part of forming our personal PPE. Traumas, grief, losses, individual, collective hurts and losses and grief. All of these form and inform our personal, our internal filters and masks. Now, just like external masks and external PPE, they can protect us. Internal PPE can do the same. It can protect us from people who are abusive, people who are out to hurt us. It can alert us to danger. Um, but with our internal PPE, we also have to be aware of what our internal PPE is, what kinds of filters we're using, if we're using filters of fear, if we're using filters of trauma, if we're using filters of abuse, of scarcity, of abundance. There's all different kinds of filters. And we just need to be aware of what they are so that we know if we're listening, if we're speaking, if we're hearing, if we're communicating through these filters. And are the use of these filters helpful, or are they getting in the way of healing ourselves and healing relationships? The hard part about the internal PPE is that we're often not aware of the filters that we've absorbed or taken on. And so naming them and just learning what they are and how they serve us well or how they can sometimes get in the way is key to our being able to communicate with our spouses, with our kids, with our colleagues, with the people who care for loved ones, with teachers, with just anybody that we interact with. Um, the other thing that can be hard about our internal PPE is sometimes we've used it to protect ourselves for so long, we don't know another kind of PPE to use. And we want to protect ourselves from being harmed or minimized or dismissed. And who wouldn't want to do that? So if We all need to learn to do this, to be aware of our internal PPE and how to use it wisely. When is it being helpful and protective? When is it harming ourselves and our relationships and learning and growing? If you want some support or assistance learning about your own internal PPE and how it might be serving you well or how it might be getting in the way of your relationships, seek out someone like me or a pastor, your imam, a rabbi, another kind of therapist, your physician. Talk to them, find out, do some reflection. What I know from my work as a therapist and also my experience as a priest and also my experience as a chaplain, that using the appropriate PPE helps us heal, helps us have hard conversations, helps us heal ourselves, helps us heal relationship. And I know and I'm absolutely convinced healing can happen on every level. I've seen it too many times to not believe that it's possible. If you want some assistance with that, you can also call me or email me, jan@therapysecure.com. Pass this on to someone who might be for whom this might be helpful. Take good care. Talk to you soon.